so dark in here, but I guess it usually is. So last week was Christmas, or Saturday was Christmas. Today's Tuesday. Tomorrow the kids are going to the dentist instead of therapy. Thursday we're back here, and then Friday we start the long holiday weekend. And Aaliyah started to struggle a little bit. The first week I feel like we did really well getting her up early, keeping her on schedule, but this week's been a little harder. We've been trying to get the kids up. We give them water. We give them, Adriana takes her medicine, and then we've been getting them into the car, and I take them for a drive because it was helping them wake up in the morning, but it stopped helping. They realize they can sleep just as well in the car. So this morning they didn't get up till later. And then Aaliyah was trying to sleep off and on throughout the day. She kept laying down and getting tired, and you'd find her part way passed out, or like trying to wake her up and get her back into the swing of life. So it's difficult. It's good to come here because it keeps her a little bit more in a routine, but it's difficult dealing with keeping her awake in the morning and in the afternoon, because if she sleeps in even a little bit, even an hour, or sleeps during the day, it can be very difficult to get her to fall asleep at night, and it can just mess everything up. And she's also had some stomach issues. I think it's because she was eating too many apricots. We have dried apricots in the cabinet, and we were kind of giving them to her every time she was coming over for a snack, and those things can mess with your stomach. I realized they were messing with mine, and then I figured, that's probably what's happening with Aaliyah. So she's been in some pain, and she's had some frustrated moments where she's started to lose it, but she hasn't had a seizure, but I just feel this feeling of like that it's coming, or that it could happen at any moment. I didn't feel that as much today, but dropping her off in therapy tonight, I just had this horrible feeling that I'm going to get a call, and I haven't. So, and maybe I won't. I would be really happy if she's okay. And Adriana has just been the same old thing. As far as her feeling a loss of balance and being unsteady on her feet. And I really believe it's the medicine still. We took, ginger out of her drink, and JR took the garlic and onion out of her breakfast. But when you think about it, it just sounds so ridiculous that those things would be causing the problem. I mean, having some ginger or something, never turned any, But anyways, we were just trying to be super careful and thinking of anything that could be contributing to this problem besides the medication. But she's still, we lowered the dose, and I agonized over that decision. I didn't really agonize a lot over going down to, dropping 25% off the dose. I didn't agonize that much over it. But I really, really did about going down to 50. Even though I know it's hurting her, it's messing her up really badly, and it's dangerous. It was still really hard because I've learned what to expect with this, and I don't want to go back to her having seizures. And I believe she very well might. And it scares me. It just is horrible to think about. I just don't want to... It's horrible what's going on now, but I think I just am afraid of a whole new horrible. And she's been going through stuff though every day, and it comes in waves. So it's almost like the pill has certain like release times. It seems like she has a time in the morning and a time in the evening, or a late afternoon, where it just seems like it comes on her and just really takes over her mind. Something just gets inside her brain and makes it foggy. That's what it feels like. But today she fell. Just look, just suddenly. I was on the phone with her therapist supervisor doing a test, and heard Adriana's head hit the floor, which is awful. It was the last thing. I think she fell like, on her butt, and then kind of toppled over from there. So it's not as horrifying as it sounds, but it's still horrible. And it's just one of those things you start to get used to, but you hate. I hate that this is happening. I hate that it keeps happening. And like I said, I really do believe that she fits the exact the list of side effects of her med, long-term side effects. I'm like, yeah, that sounds exactly like her. This all sounds very, very much like what she's going through. So I'm sure at some point, maybe this weekend, I'll go down a little bit more on her dose, but I feel like I'm just waiting for the seizure. The last time I went down on the dose was around, it was a few months ago in September, and it had been a year since she'd had a seizure, and we had been lowering the dose, and I got down to 25%, and that was when she had the seizure. And I just hate it because, JR really believes that the diet that he's doing will, can take over and help her brain to balance and do what it needs to do. But it might take time. And I think he may be right that it'll give the brain what it needs, perhaps. But I also think he may be wrong. So, I don't want to pretend like I know exactly what's wrong and how this, Aaliyah, when Aaliyah has these issues, it often is related to food she's eating and stomach issues, and things happen a lot of times at night. But lately during, it's happened during the day for sure, but at night. And Adriana's a little different because I think it just seems more random. You can't really tell that it's something to do with her stomach. And I just feel fear, but on Christmas Day, I believe is the day that I lowered the dose. Maybe the night before is when I started, and I agonized over it. I just felt horrible. I felt horrible about it. I'm like, I'm exchanging one horrible problem for another horrible problem. And so I just I prayed, and I read a letter I got from my Aunt Karen that was talking about focusing on that song, "Oh Come Let Us Adore Him," that Christmas carol. And she said that she was going to work on that, on focusing on doing that this Christmas, this holiday season. So I thought, that's all I really need to be focused on. Some families, they may be focused on like, well, who knows what. I focus on those things too, like trying to get a nice family picture, or, which I wasn't focused on that this year, but, or wrapping all the presents beautifully and getting everything done in time. I'm like, I'm trying to focus on Christ and all that he's done for us and what Christmas means and being in God's presence, and not about the fact that like at any point like my kids could drop over and have seizures. But it was comforting. It was comforting because I did feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, what does God want from me? I feel like this is really what he wants from me today. And it was easier that day because it felt so divinely delivered to me as a gift almost, that message. But now it's not Christmas. So I'm like, but I think the message still stands that every day you can focus on God and being in God's presence and adoring God, Christ, and remembering the Christmas story. Like, it doesn't have to stop, and it's always the charge, right, to us Christians to not focus on our worries. And so I still want to felt like I was going to sneeze. I still want to try to do that and make that my focus instead of living in fear. And we are thinking of calling up a doctor who specializes in CBD and like cannabis. And our neurologist actually gave us this woman's name, this info. So we hadn't contacted her because she's really expensive, but we're certainly to a place now where we're a little desperate, and it would be nice to be able to tell people, oh yeah, we're consulting with a specialist. We're not just coming off the medicine and having with no plan. Because people don't necessarily, you tell people like, well, we're feeding her great and her body's healing, which is true. Like, it's doing a lot of great things to her body, but it doesn't necessarily sound super comforting, I think, to nurses and doctors sometimes, to know that you're doing, to make it sound like you're doing nothing, because people just don't think much of what a diet can do. I just think that there's not a lot of respect given to that, not a lot of credence to diet healing the body. So, but I'm also interested in knowing what this person might have to say and how this doctor could help. So I'm glad that we have that as an option. But yeah, I'm just ready to not live like this, always wondering, when the other kid's gonna drop, right? It's like, not when the other shoe's gonna drop, when the other kid's gonna drop. Because it just is a constant thing, and I do think God has helped me to not focus on it all the time, and to also remember that we can get through these things. There's nothing that surprises him. He's here for us. He cares. He has a plan. I do believe that the girls have a great potential, a much bigger potential than is easy to picture a lot of days. I really do, and I think God wants us to meet the potential that He gave for us. I think the girls, I think there's a lot of issues that can be resolved, and a lot of things that can be healed or improved upon. There's gains we can make that we've just been stalled again. And we've gone backwards a lot. But I do think there's a lot more there that, in the potential. And so I just pray sometimes that God would help us with all of that's in there, that we can figure out. There are things to be discovered, and there are things that can help. And we just need that guidance and to give it time. And yeah, I guess that's it. So that's kind of how things are. So many things feel like they're on hold. So many things. I need to call back the Amen Clinic. I called them, and I just realized that they actually returned my call and left a message. I just realized. Get that going, and the diaper people didn't respond to the call I left. The pull-up, the thing about the pull-ups. We still haven't finished the Medi-Cal application. It just feels like a lot of things are stalled, but I do have the kids doing their blood test tomorrow. So that's the final test that we were doing for Dr. Wong. That's the final test. We did all of his genetic testing. This is the blood test that he does. We did all the blood testing and the stool sample testing for Dr. Collins, the gastroenterologist. And so this is our last test tomorrow morning, the lab. It's gonna be good to get that done, and just trying to knock stuff out, because it does help us feel better to know, like, we're doing what we can, and we're following through with the things that we can. I'm just hoping there's a little bit more stability before Adriana goes back to school, because right now it feels like she has to be watched a lot because she's so unsteady and she can fall over. And she doesn't seem to be afraid of it. You know, she'll sit down. Sometimes she sits down, but a lot of times she doesn't. You know, she'll get right back up. She's restless. I guess that's another side effect, is restlessness. So she has a hard time just sitting still. And another side effect is a false sense of like security, or a false sense of being okay, wellness or something like that. I'm like, well, yeah, she's like laughing and having a great time. She like, when she's being affected, I believe, by the medication, she kind of acts high. And it makes sense why she's not really able to learn and why she's not really able to focus, because her brain seems kind of out to lunch. It's just such a shame that medication has these side effects that, but you know, if there were going to be any year that was wasted with side effects that held them back from being able to think and function, it was 2020, right? 2020, a lot of like awful things happened. It was kind of a stalled year for a lot of people. So, you know, 2021, we got back in the game, and we're trudging forward. We're continuing. We're progressing. We're moving on, and that's that.